Hope you guys are doing good today. If you've been with us for very long, you know that we've been going through the book of John for our community group lessons, and today we'll be in John chapter 8, verses 31 through 47. So if you've got a Bible, go ahead and turn there with us and we'll get into the text. John 8:31 says, "So Jesus said to the Jews who had believed him, 'If you abide in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free.'" Man, this is one of those verses that if you've been in the church for any amount of time, you've probably heard it several times. And even just in life in general, we've probably heard it on movies, TV shows, just conversations with friends. It's one of those popular verses, especially verse 32, right? That second part where it says, "If you know the truth, then the truth will set you free." Amen. What a great message that is, right? Because we live in America, and America was built on freedom, right? It's what we based everything on, and it's easy for us to leave out the first part of those two verses, which is verse 31, and it's what gives you the context and the understanding of what Jesus was trying to get here to. So let's read verse 31 and 32 again. "So Jesus said to the Jews who had believed him, 'If you abide in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free.'" So what truth do we get to know, and how do we get to know that truth? That's what Jesus is starting to get at here, and he says that it's if you abide in his word. Now the word abide, it means to stay or to remain in something. So Jesus here is telling us, how do we get to know the truth? Well, it's by being in his word. And what does that truth look like? Because in this life, the devil is constantly throwing lies at us. He's constantly throwing distractions our way, and that's exactly against what Jesus wants. And Jesus wants us to know the truth. And one quick way the devil does this is our phones, right? Like, I know a lot of people, probably the first thing they look at in the morning is their phone. And what are they doing? They may be looking at social media. They may be looking at news, just things going on in the world. And a lot of times those things are depressing, right? Or social media, we compare ourselves to others. We see what we're missing out on. And these are just lies that the devil throws at us and tries to trip us up with. So how do we seek out this truth, and how do we know it? God says by abiding in his word. So let's talk about what that looks like a little bit. I heard an illustration one time talking about the Secret Service. So right, Secret Service, they protect our president, they protect his family, they go to these events, they fly around with him, and they do a great service for the president. But another thing that they do is they police the currency in our country. So in other words, they arrest people for making counterfeit money, for trying to cheat the system, for trying to lie. So when I heard this and I got to thinking about, well, how do they train for that? The first thing that came to my mind was, well, they probably just look at a bunch of counterfeit bills, right? Try to figure out what's wrong with them, what's different about them. And the more I listened and the more I learned about this, these guys, is what they do is they actually sit down in a room and they are given a real $1 bill, $5 bill, 10, 20, 100. They get the real deal and they look at it. They study it. They get to know it so well that if they hold it up to a light, if they look at all the corners, they can instantly recognize if it's real or if it's fake. If they can smell it and they know if it's real or if it's fake. And that's what Jesus is trying to tell us here in verse 31. If we abide in his word, if we get to know his word and who he is so well that we can even smell out the lies of the devil, we are better. We are closer to Jesus. Our relationship with him is stronger as a result of that. This is what God is trying to tell us. So let's read on in verses 33 and going on. Verse 33 says, "They answered him, 'We are offspring of Abraham and have never been enslaved to anyone. How is it that you say you will become free?' Jesus answered them, 'Truly, truly, I say to you, everyone who practices sin is a slave to sin.'" So Jesus, he just told them, this truth will set you free. And in their minds, they're thinking back to their great-great-grandparents, right? The people who were enslaved by Egyptians, the ones that were held captive. And that was true slavery, right? They couldn't do what they wanted. They had to do only what they were told. This is what they're thinking of. But Jesus, he was not thinking of this. What he was talking about is sin, right? Right there in verse 34, he says, you are a slave to sin. And that's what Jesus is trying to tell them, is that they are free from this slavery of sin through faith in him. So, moving on to verse 35. We're going to read 35 through 40 here. The slave does not remain in the house forever. The Son remains forever. So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. I know that you are offspring of Abraham, yet you seek to kill me because my word finds no place in you. I speak of what I have seen with my father, and you do what you have heard from your father. They answered him, Abraham is our father. Jesus said to them, if you were Abraham's children, you would be doing the works Abraham did. But now you seek to kill me, a man who has told you the truth that I heard from God. This is not what Abraham did. So earlier they said, we are the offspring of Abraham, and now Jesus is bringing it back to that, right? He's saying, if you were truly the offspring of Abraham, if you were Abraham's children, you would be about your father's business. Because let's look back. What did Abraham do in the Bible, right? He's famous for many things, but the one that comes to my mind first is the scene of him and his son Isaac. Right? He works so hard to get a son, to finally have a child, and then God calls him to sacrifice this child, right? To go up on a mountain and sacrifice his child. And you know, in my mind as a father now, I'm thinking, there's no way I could ever do that. There's no way after working so hard to get this child I could do that. But Abraham, he says, all right, God, I trust you. I believe that you have a plan and that you're going to take care of this situation. So he goes up on the mountain, and when he gets there, there is a substitute for his son. There's a substitute for his child, right? And it's cool looking at the Bible and seeing foreshadowing and different stories working together, because a couple thousand years later, on that very same mountain, Jesus died for our sins, right? He was our substitute as a result of us being slaves to sin. So that's who Abraham is, right? In Hebrews it says he is accounted as a friend of God. Right? He's a man of righteousness. You know, if they were truly Abraham's children, they would have recognized who Jesus was, right? They would have seen that, oh, this is the Son of God. This guy is different. There's something different about him. Maybe we should listen and believe what he is saying. But sadly, they did not. They completely missed what Jesus was trying to tell them. So, moving on in verse 41, it says, you are doing the works your father did. They said to him, we were not born of sexual immorality. So right there, they're kind of taking a jab at Jesus' mom. You know, that's not a good move. That's not the way you need to go about this. If you talk about my mama, it's going to make me upset, right? So they're taking jabs at Jesus' mom, saying, well, your mom was pregnant out of wedlock. Just trying to come up with a way to discredit him. But Jesus continues on. He said to them, if God were your father, you would love me. For I came from God and I am here. I came not of my own accord, but he sent me. So right there, once again, he's saying, if you truly were children of Abraham, if you truly believed in God like you say you do, you would know who I am. You can't love God but not love me. So, moving on to verse 43, and we're going to read through the rest of 47. 43 says, why do you not understand what I say? Is it because you cannot bear to hear my word? You are of your father the devil, and your will is to do your father's desires. He is a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks out of his own character, for he is a liar and the father of lies. But because I tell the truth, you do not believe me. Which one of you convicts me of sin? If I tell the truth, why do you not believe me? Whoever is of God hears the words of God. The reason why you do not hear them is that you are not of God. So right there, those last few verses, they bring me right back to verse 31. Right, verse 31, if you abide in my word, then you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. At the end, he says, whoever is of God hears the words of God. If we abide in his word, if we are living this life for Christ, we're hearing his words, right? we know what he's telling us, which way he's leading us. And that's what Jesus is trying to get across here, of how to be to be saved from sin, which is abiding in him, spending time with him, spending time as a church together, spending time as a family in the Word. And there's many different ways we can do this, but those are just a few off the top of my head. So I hope that today's lesson has convicted you. I hope that God has spoke to you through his Word. If you have any questions or want to reach out to us, please reach out. Email us at info@horizonsiloam.com, or you can go to the website, Horizon Siloam, and connect with us, contact us, and we'd love to help you in any way we can and reach out. Thank you for watching.